there was no other band like them. Tonight, we remember the day, 60 years ago, the band that changed the world forever, changed us forever too.
Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest attraction in the whole world, the Beatles! She was just 17.
Australia had seen nothing like it. Crowds so big, they had to send an elaborate police escort decoy.
This is not the Beatles, this is a diversionary measure. This is a police escort without the Beatles. They fooled the fans. The Beatles are making an entrance through the back of the hotel.
And the fact it happened at all is a minor miracle. In 1963, promoter Ken Brodziak secured an up-and-coming group called the Beatles for a 3-week tour of Australia. By the time the tour came around a year later, they'd become the biggest band in the world.
And the Beatles became history, and they're lasting history and modern history. So it's like being able to say, I saw Mozart or Beethoven or somebody. It was a changing of the guard, and it was a breaking through of our culture. Australia really hit the 1960s in the time when the Beatles landed here.
What a day it was at Adelaide Airport.
At a time when international travel was expensive and global communication rare, the Beatles tour felt like Australia was at the centre of the world. Aussies went wild for the Fab Four, or, as one local newsreel called them,
Where John Lennon, 2 other Beatle regulars and Jimmy Nicol.
Jimmy Nicol, briefly the 4th Beatle, filled in for Ringo, who was suffering tonsillitis and pharyngitis.
Paul, what do you expect to find here in Australia? Australians.
But soon Ringo was back on board.
The koala bear showed with that Aussie-wise, Ringo's with it.
The sold-out tour kicked off in Adelaide, with Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane following. The concert crowds were huge, but the hotel crowds were even bigger. An estimated 350,000 people lined the route from the airport to the hotel in Adelaide alone. More than half the city's entire population.
Well, you've just seen the Beatles here at the Southern Cross. Hysteria has really taken hold of the crowd
We
now.
call it B-Day, the day the Beatles hit Australia. They were brought here to 40 Macleay Street at the Sheridan Motor Hotel. On this day, 60 years ago, it was completely jammed with fans, and the signs that say no standing, they were totally ignored.
These intercontinental Mersey-beat missiles have hit Australia for a pop 6.
It was the moment Australia finally felt part of the world, and things would never be the same. We are live from the lands of the cooler nation. Gives you chills, doesn't it? And there's a bit of Kate Langbrookmania.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
I didn't realise the bit about how they were booked before they were.
No.
Like they're kind of like they were like Bitcoin.
We got in early. Yeah. I was
This is
reliving them.
such-
I gave them a listen today. They're ripping off Oasis, I think. But like, an amazing band that still stands the test of time. And what a moment for Australia and seeing the people that got out there. It's nothing on Taylor Swift.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
But also,
They're losing their minds.
and they were considered to be like delinquent with their long hair, and you look at them now.
They're so cute. And
Aren't
wholesome.
they?
But you know what's interesting? They couldn't have been that delinquent if half of Adelaide turned up. Do you know what I mean? Like half a city.
Maybe it was the delinquent half of Adelaide.
How big is that half? Well, anyway, Kaye Plummer was lucky enough to see the Beatles in Melbourne's Festival Hall when she was 9 years old, accompanied by the coolest mum in the world, Dorothy. And they both join us now. Thank you to both of you for being here. This is for both of you, I guess, but Kaye, we'll start with you. What was it like? No? Did we not have...
Well, I was almost a baby, but it was terrifyingly loud. We'd never been as a family to a concert before, and we didn't know what to expect. And the only thing I could really say is it was like post-match grand final night. It was just so loud. The screaming, nothing like it I've ever seen before. Yeah.
Dorothy, what about for you?
Well, it was the screaming as well and the noise. these sort of mass hysteria that when you were in the actual pavilion, it was overwhelming. I think my children, at the age they were, got a big surprise to see their parents standing up and screaming as well.
Wow.
Well, Dorothy, so yeah, I wanted to know, were you a fan at the time, or were you just trying to keep the kids occupied? Just anything to take their minds off it? Were you a big fan?
Well, I like to keep up with the music scene, but no, not really. It was just in Melbourne at that time. It was the one thing that was going on. Everyone was swept up in this hysteria of the moment, and you sort of had to be in it.
Yeah, it was really a change in times in the 60s, and we didn't sort of have incremental changes. It all just came massively in one day, really, and the crowds were enormous and couldn't really hear the concert, and I couldn't see it because I was too small.
Yeah, you really couldn't hear any music. It was just the screaming and being caught up in the moment. It was exciting times. One of the first times, I think, that the streets of Melbourne were closed off for a music group, a popular music group.
Dorothy, I think it's time to come clean. We need to know what you did, and we need to know what you did that was embarrassing in front of Kaye. And Kaye, you're there to keep her honest.
Well, as I said before, I think my children got a surprise at their usually quiet parents standing up and joining in.
You didn't throw your knickers at them, did you?
No.
Well, so Dorothy, which one of the Beatles set you off?
I think I liked them all. I liked them all, actually. I think my favourite might have been John, but they were an excellent group, and the music was something different for us in those days. Here I was in this frenzy of adoration, really, for these four young men.
Guys, we could talk about this forever. It's amazing we're talking about this 60 years after you just went along to a show. Thank you so much for speaking to us and giving us an insight.
That's a pleasure, no worries.
It's been a very, very nice way to remember it all. It was lovely.
It trumps most concert goers' stories.
Thank you.